because it's something that there's so much misinformation on there. And that's why the other week I talked about biohacking because there's lots of just noise out there. And you may have heard this whole thing about what's the deal with biologic age versus the chronologic age and all the thing. Well, if I sat down, we were chit-chatting, and I said, hey, your body could actually be older or younger than your chronologic age, right? Then the age based upon your birthday, right? So here's the thing. They can be very different. Let me give you an example. So let's say you have two people, they're both 50. Um, and one of them feels amazing. They literally have the energy. They can do whatever they want. They can literally do the things that they used to do in their 20s and 30s, whether it be hiking, mountain biking, climbing, running up the stairs, running around the block, chasing kids, whatever it is. And the other one was like, oh my gosh, I get up, my back hurts, I'm achy. And I climb the stairs in my house and I get out of breath and I just don't have the energy to run around with my grandkids, whatever it is. And they're both 50 years old. Like, what the heck? Is this possible? Yeah, it's possible. We see it each and every day. So here's the truth. This is something that you can actually affect change rapidly, nearly immediately. You can make changes in this. You don't have to, age can truly be what I often say, it's just a number. It's just a number. It can truly be that because you can feel and actually have your biology so much younger than whatever that calendar date says, right? Like it's it's one of those things that I am passionate about because I figured out how to feel 10, 20. In fact, I got my biological age checked just a couple of months ago and it said I was in my early 30s and I'm in my 50s. I'm nearly 20 years younger by data, but I actually feel even younger than that. I can literally do everything I could do in my 20s. And there's actually a lot of literature about this now because we didn't used to really know much about what nowadays they call in the press, the common press, and the medical literature, they call it the hallmarks of aging. That actually the things that drive how fast your body is aging, if you will, the things that we can measure, right? There was a great paper on this. I'm going to pull it up for you because I really found it kind of useful and helpful because it actually, I felt like articulated really well this whole aging process. And one of the biggest features in aging that we can monitor, that we can measure, that we can look at, that is actually huge in impact is this thing called mitochondrial dysfunction. And this was in the recent Journal of the Clinics of Investigation. It was published, gosh, just 3 years ago, July 1st, 2023, and it's entitled Mitochondrial Dysfunction in Cell Senescence and Aging. And this I thought was such a great article because it talked about what happens at the level of these powerhouses in our cell called the mitochondria. Like they are literally what helps us to feel amazing and energized and all the things, or if they're not working at tip-top shape, right? If they're, as I talk about in my book, I talk about it's kind of like the difference between burning diesel gas and having an electric vehicle. There's like no emissions in the electric vehicle. The mitochondria are working amazing. They're pumping out the energy. My brother and I chit-chat about this the other day, how in an electric car, you can literally hit the gas and that thing just takes off all the torque, and then say if you got a diesel engine, how fast do those take off? Like not very quickly. And they burn dirty, right? Look at the plume that comes out of the exhaust pipe. And there ain't none of that coming out of an electric vehicle. And this isn't about whether or not you should get an electric vehicle. It's nothing to do that. But when your mitochondrial, those they're called organelles, but when they are working well, you actually have more energy, you get more energy, you feel more energized, you can produce more energy. And I'm gonna share with you. I can't wait. I'm like billowing with excitement. This is one of my favorite topics to share about how you can actually affect change in your own cells at the cellular level to get these mitochondria, the things that actually produce the energy, the so-called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, right? That's the energy currency in your cell, how you can get these things working robustly and well and efficiently and strongly. And this is no longer theoretical. We actually understand this stuff now, which is really cool. This is actual real deal biology. This isn't just fiction. This isn't just presupposed. This is real deal data, which we now have, and there's another article I wanted to share. It's in the Frontiers of Physiology. This was just from 2 years ago. It was July, also, I guess, the popular time in the summer to come out with these amazing articles. This one's entitled Mitochondrial Dysfunction and its Association with Age-Related Disorders. I was just reading about this week because somebody asked me a question about the neurodegenerative diseases because she's really worried in her family. Um, Alzheimer's runs strongly, as it does mine. I even have that gene, the ApoE4 allele, that puts me at predisposed risk for that. I have a family member, in fact, my own mother is struggling with this right now. And I had an auntie, her sister, who died real young of Alzheimer's, early 60s. And so this is something that is front and foremost in my mind. And one of the things that drives it actually is mitochondrial dysfunction. And so I want to share with you today what we can do about this, right? Why would I even share about it? There's nothing you can do. There's actually a lot that you can do. So here's the deal. I'm going to share with you some of the data as well as some of the tools that I've learned in my life, how you can actually make an impact and feel younger, even 10 or 20 years younger, and have your biology reflect that. Like you can literally measure it. So there are three big drivers, three signs, three areas where you could recognize if you're aging quicker than you should or than you want to. And I'm going to start with the kind of the first sign, which most of us have felt at some point in our lives that's so important and critical, and it's our energy levels, right? Maybe you feel low energy and you just can't really figure out what is happening with this. And this is usually the first signal that you can often feel. It's one of those things that is fascinating because, as I shared, these small little organelles, which are inside nearly each and every cell in your whole entire body, other than the red blood cells, they produce the energy. They're called the mitochondria. And what happens is they lose efficiency and what we call respiratory capacity, meaning literally that they produce less energy. And at the same time, kind of as I alluded to in my example of the diesel engine versus the electric engine, they produce more inflammation, or what is called in the scientific world reactive oxygen species. This is kind of like the biologic rust, if you will, or the biologic plume of exhaust, like the diesel engines they produce. When they're not working well, they not only produce less energy, but they also have more exhaust, if you will, right? More oxidative damage, these so-called reactive oxygen species, which cause stress in the body, they cause inflammation, and they, in our purposes today, they accelerate your aging. So this example I shared at the outset, where this guy, is in he's 50 and he feels like he's 60 or 65 because he has more inflammation going on. The mitochondria in his body are not working efficiently. They're not working well. And effectively, what happens is that he has less energy production, he has more inflammation, more free radical or oxidative species damage, and his cellular signaling isn't as efficient. And so when this happens, this is when aging accelerates. You have accelerated aging. And that's why you feel that something's up. You're lower in energy, that you just don't have the chutzpah, if you will. And it's actually biology. It's truly cellular, right? It is cellular. And here, I'll just share with you, there's a guy that I worked with in the past, and he gave me, when he first came to see me, he's like, hey, I don't know what it is. Like, I'm a hard worker. He was president of his company and he was working long hours. And he's like, I'm still doing it. I'm just making it happen. But I feel like I'm only running off like 60% energy all the time, right? Like just not full bore 100%. And so we checked, he actually went to his primary care doc and checked, the usual screening labs. And guess what? They were all normal because he did not have any diagnosable disease yet, but he knew something was off. And so we got a little deeper. We went under the hood. We checked much more extensive functional labs, and we found out a few things. He had an elevated fasting insulin, for example. He had some inflammation going on that his doc didn't know about because he didn't check. He also had some low testosterone, low T. In his other doc, he did just one test. He did a total testosterone, but he didn't do a free testosterone. He didn't do a sex hormone binding globulin. He missed a few things, and so he didn't realize that indeed he had low testosterone and low function of that because the sex hormone binding globulin was elevated. He also had some derangements, if you will, some issues with his cortisol. It was a little messed up, and so we dug in, and we actually went real deep with the fasting insulin because that's kind of the what I like to call the master hormone, if you will. It plays into all the other hormones, and right a close second behind that is your cortisol. It kind of drives and works with all the other hormones, whether it be thyroid or your sex hormones like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. And if you can't get those sort of in their best state, balanced and in a good place, both the insulin as well as your cortisol, it's gonna affect everything else. And so within it was about maybe just a little less than 3 months, we had significant changes because we tackled this at the root. We went deep, and said to me, he said, I feel like I got 10 years back, like legit. And it's not magic, it's biology. So here's what you can do right now today, focusing on this, what we call the energy node in functional and integrative medicine. We talk about energy a lot, the energy node, and this is specifically referring to the biology of this organelle called the mitochondria, right? That energy powerhouse. So I'm going to share with you, we're going to get you actionable steps on each of these three things right now today so you can do something about it, so you can make some changes. So here's some just high potent, high leverage things you can start doing immediately today. First one is one of my favorites of all times, and I share about this extensively. You might have heard about it before. It's to get up early and see the morning light. Like get outside within the first hour, let's say, of sunrise. And it doesn't have to be for a long time. It could be 5 minutes. Maybe you make it 10 and you go for a little walk around your block. Don't wear sunglasses. This is early light exposure. You don't need sunglasses, but this helps reset your biologic or so-called circadian rhythm, and it will help tremendously with your energy levels throughout the day as well as your sleep at night. So, number one thing, get out in the morning light. Number two, you got to prioritize protein early in the day. Your first meal should be power packed with protein. 30 to 50 grams. If you're a lady, shoot for 30. If you're a dude, shoot for 40 or 50. And this provides the support that you need for your organ of longevity, right? The muscle. Muscle is literally the organ of longevity, and you need protein to be able to build muscle. It gives your body all the essential, what we call the amino acids or the raw materials that it needs for energy production. It also helps you stabilize your blood sugar. It creates some satiety early on so you don't feel like snacking. So prioritize protein, especially the first meal of the day, 30 to 50 grams. And then every meal thereafter, if you do two more meals, do about 30-ish or 30 or 40. Or maybe even up to 50. I actually do about 50 grams of protein for every meal because I don't really snack in between at all. I shoot for about 150 grams per day. Most ladies should shoot for about 100 grams of protein per day. You got to measure it, right? What you don't measure, you can't optimize. So do that as well. Prioritize protein and measure it. The next thing, powerfully, and it affects the mitochondria so much, is move your body. You got to move every single day. Even if it's not your weight training day, you should be moving, whether it be walking or moderate runs. You got to do something. You got to move your body. And I always talk about the easiest way that I found to do that, which is just to walk for 10 minutes after every meal. You can usually figure out how to incorporate that, right? If we say, you got to hit it for 30 minutes, and like, well, I can't find 30 minutes. Well, every time you eat, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, whatever, walk for 10 minutes after, just two or three songs. Three songs, boom, you're already at 10 minutes. Or just walk in silence like I do, just looking out at nature. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. Or if you got to be indoors, walk on your treadmill, like whatever. Walk for 10 minutes after meals. And make sure to incorporate 2 to 4 days, just shoot for 3 of strength training, good old fashioned what we call pumping iron, right? We call it nowadays resistance training because it's kind of the in vogue thing. This is where you increase your muscle mass through resistance in the gym or at home, body weight, all sorts of things. When you do this, you actually stimulate this factor in your body that grows the mitochondria. You get more of them. And guess what? When you get more of them, you get more energy. You improve not only the ones that you got, and it improves their density, their function, but you can also grow more of them. And this is well supported in the literature. This can happen at any age. Like literally, this is amazing stuff. And the last thing with this step to increase your energy is you got to prioritize your sleep. Like literally protect it like it matters because it really, really does. I didn't used to believe this 20 years ago. I was sleeping, 4 to 5 to 6 on a good night, hours a night in my early days as a physician. I was just like, I don't have time for that. Like, I'm gonna wait and I'm gonna sleep when I'm dead, like The Cure used to say, that rock band. You cannot do that. And if you do, you'll die younger because poor sleep equals impaired or challenged mitochondrial recovery. So the target here, 7 to 8 hours, somewhere in that window is for most people. Sadly, there's not many of us that can survive or actually thrive, is a better word, thrive off of less than 7 hours of sleep. The so-called short sleepers, I mean, they hardly exist. It's such a infinitesimally small amount of the population, and that's what the data shows. This is not me on my soapbox. That's like the real data. So if you think, oh, I can get by with 4 to 6 hours, you can for a time. I mean, I did for a decade or more, but I'm telling you, I was not my best self. I was a little bit grouchy. I was actually starting to have some early insulin resistance. My fasting glucose was creeping up, and I just wasn't uh, feeling awesome, right? My mood was a little crappy, and my wife, she could tell you about what it was like in these days when I only slept 4 to 5 hours a night, and I'm sleeping 7 to 8 now, and I feel amazing. So whew, those are the things you can do right now, today. Sign number two. So we talked about low energy. Maybe you've had this sign, some stubborn belly fat, like midsection fat, this so-called visceral fat, if you will, that, if you're in your 40s and 50s, you understand what this is. You're like, what the heck? I'm eating good, I'm moving, I'm doing all the things, but like I got this little extra around the midsection, whether you're guy or gal, like none of us like this. It sucks. And worse than that, not just what it looks like physically, but that actually is the type of fat that can be dangerous, the so-called visceral or abdominal fat. That's actually very, very inflammatory. It releases, they're kind of like hormones. They're special. They're called adipokines that actually cause inflammation in the body. And what happens is it really drives this primary issue that I was telling you about just a moment ago called insulin resistance, which messes with all your hormones, right? It causes the drift in hormones that I talk about, as well as it causes this chronic low-grade inflammation, which most doctors out there, they're not checking for this stuff. So here's the thing. This is where it gets powerful, and this is what you should really be paying attention to, because when this happens, when you get that visceral fat, that abdominal fat that's secreting those adipokines, those cytokines, that is causing inflammation, it messes with your blood glucose balance, the blood sugar balance. It messes with that via the insulin that I talked about. It causes inflammation, which is literally at the heart of every disease, right? If you guys have read Peter Attia's book, he always likes to talk about the four horsemen, right? The most common causes of death here in this country: heart disease, number one. Number two is either cancer or neurodegenerative disease, things like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, etc. And the fourth, the big four, which I think is even more common, is metabolic disease, right? It's this insulin resistance thing that we've been hearing about a lot lately, because that is so prevalent. Sadly, it's like 90% of Americans have insulin resistance. They don't even know it because nobody's checking, right? You got to look, you got to check. But what that does is not only does it mess with what we call this nutrient sensing, which is important for each and every cell, especially the mitochondria that produces your energy, but also it causes inflammation. And that inflammation basically drives all disease. And it starts to affect every system out there. As I shared earlier, insulin is the master hormone. And if it's not functioning cleanly, efficiently, and well, it's affecting all the other hormones. It's literally not just an isolated issue, which some people in traditional Western medicine like to just blame isolated things. It's a whole network problem, if you will. So as this insulin starts to creep up, even it could be in the so-called normal range, your body shifts into this so-called fat storage mode, right? It puts the belly fat in there. And cortisol, too, the second most powerful hormone, if you will, in the body. Insulin is I would say, the master regulator. Cortisol, or your stress hormone, is the close second. It actually causes you to store fat in that abdominal area, that visceral fat, right? And this is where people feel like, gosh, like I shared just a moment ago, I'm doing everything right. I'm eating well. I'm moving my body. Nothing seems to be working. I still can't get rid of this extra few pounds around the midsection. And the reason being is they're doing all the things on the surface, but they're not going deep enough to really address the biology that is causing this. That's what's at the heart of the matter, the insulin resistance. Here's a couple of things right now, action steps you can start Today, number one, stop snacking. I've said this before. I say it in my book. I haven't actually said it in a little while because I don't think about it as often because I rarely snack. But when you're snacking all the time, guess what happens when you're snacking? Your body is producing more insulin and it's getting more and more insulin resistant. And so try to tighten up your meal schedule where you're eating three powerful meals packed with protein, 30 to 50 grams per meal. And then honestly, you're not even going to feel hungry. You won't even feel hungry in between. You won't even feel the need to snack. Because when you're snacking all the time, it sends your blood sugar into these roller coasters, it goes up and down, and it's not awesome for this metabolic machine that we really want to refine and fine tune. And it's so simple. Just stop snacking all the time, right? Try to limit your snacking. If you do feel like you have to, this is kind of a continuum, right? Like if you're snacking all the time today and I say cold turkey, stop snacking tomorrow, it's going to be rough. So that's not what I'm asking you to do, but I'm asking you to little by little reduce your snacking, prioritize protein each and every meal. You won't feel like you need to snack as much because protein is satiating. And as as you're able to kind of cut out the snacks, and if you really need to snack, do it with something that's a single ingredient whole food. Maybe you're going to grab a handful of nuts. Maybe you're going to grab a piece of cheese, or maybe you're going to grab a piece of protein. There's these beef sticks that I buy that are really great, that if I really have to, like if I'm on a plane flight or whatever and there's not great food available, I'll just grab one of these beef sticks and it has a bunch of protein. Doesn't have, it's basically one ingredient, or often there's a little bit of salt or something, but not much really in there other than the protein, a little bit of salt. There's no carbs in there that's going to mess with my insulin, right? And I'm not saying don't eat carbs. You can eat carbs. You can have a handful of berries or whatever, but in general, try to keep your snacking to a minimum. And when you do, if you feel like you have to, try to keep it to whole food snacks. And first, I would just say take a glass of water because sometimes your body and the hypothalamus, this part of the brain, it makes you think that you're hungry and you're really just thirsty. So water with some electrolytes can often curtail that hunger that you feel. The other thing, I've already mentioned this, but what you can do today to improve your metabolism, this insulin resistance piece, is just move your body after every meal. One of the most powerful and underrated of all times. There's lots of data now. One of my favorites was in Science, which is one of the premier health journals, medical journals out there, where basically it showed that when you walk 10 minutes 3 times a day after meals, it was more powerful than walking 30 minutes all at once, you know, and it was actually significantly more powerful, more effective. So took less time in the sense that you could fit it into your schedule. You didn't have to do it 30 minutes continuously. And when you do it postprandially or after a meal, very, very powerful. The next quick step, tool, powerful tip I'm going to share with you is you got to build muscle, right? I've shared this already. Muscle is your metabolic engine. It's literally the secret to longevity. It's your organ of longevity. I would say shoot for 3 strength training, resistance training, pumping iron, whatever you want to call it, sessions per week where you're building muscle. And this is the most important at any stage of life, but even more important as we age, because not only will muscle improve your metabolism, you can burn fat while you sleep, but it'll help you be more resistant to falling down or to having injuries because you have the strength. And at the same time, I always recommend building muscle through total body exercises, whether it be without weights like I'm doing now here, air squats, or do a plank or do burpees or pull-ups, chin-ups, push-ups. Use your whole body, and you're also working on balance as well and flexibility. Extremely critical and important as you age, right? So if you trip off that curb or whatever at the airport, the uneven steps, you're not going to sprain your ankle. You're not going to break a bone. You're going to be fine. You're going to just, do a little dance, and you can call it a dance move, and you'll be good, right? Okay, the last thing here, tool I'm going to add, number 4, is watch out for the hidden sugar, right? Not all sugar is natural and good. It's not like sugar is bad or good, but there's better, right? Good, better, best. Natural sugars that come from whole fruits are the best. Watch out as Bill Benjamin Bickman used to say, watch out for those things in the grocery store that come in a box or in a bag or with a barcode because they have a bunch of ingredients in there. And most of them are not amazing. They're highly refined sugars, highly refined grains, and highly refined oils, right? The big three I always ask people to try to avoid and cut out of their diet: highly refined sugars, highly refined grains and the oils, all the seed oils. But when you watch out for those and you don't add them to your diet, you will significantly improve your insulin sensitivity, which will not only help you feel better, you'll have less of those peaks and valleys, highs and lows of the sugar going all over the place. You're like low sugar, then you're like your sugar goes up and no energy, and you just bounce off this roller coaster all day long of your blood sugar, which is not in balance because of those refined sugars that many of us eat. And they're often among the biggest drivers of insulin resistance. So these are foundational steps which will improve the number two thing that we just finished talking about, right? Which is that stubborn midsection visceral fat, which is not only not desired because we don't like how it looks, but it is inflammatory and it is literally at the root of almost all of the hormonal imbalances in your body, the problems with your insulin. Oh my gosh, we got one more thing to talk about. And I'm just, I know I'm at about 30 minutes. I just have a few more minutes. I'm trying to keep this shorter than back in the past when I used to do, hour, 20-minute podcast. But I really want you to get your energy up for this last part because it is where a lot of people feel it, but they don't know how to fully describe it. This is when you have poor recovery, right? Well, you go to the gym, you're doing your thing, and you're like, what the heck? I'm not bouncing back. I don't feel as energized. It can be a little bit more subtle, but you feel like, hey, I'm doing the things, but it's just not working like maybe it did in your 20s or 30s. Like, what's going on here? We've already talked about the inflammation that might be happening, the cellular senescence or those cells getting older. But what is at the central core is just as I shared previously in the first point I made about your energy feeling low, it's these powerhouses called the mitochondria. And not only can they decline in number, but they can decline in efficiency. And this is when the cells go into that, what they call the senescence, which is where they're just kind of in this kind of in between. They're not really super alive. They're not really dead yet, but they're just not producing much energy. They're in this old, worn out state, and they don't have the ability to repair themselves properly. They're not functioning optimally. They're not sending the right signals, which is why you don't recover as well. It's why your sleep becomes less restorative. It's why the workouts feel harder. I don't know if you felt that. I felt that before. Mostly in my 30s and mid 40s, I'm like, I'm doing the things, I'm working out, but I'm not recovering. I just feel achy all the time, you know? This is when somebody says, I'm doing all the things, but I'm just not bouncing back. That's when your biology is moving towards the senescence that I just shared about and inflammation. So here's somebody I'll just share quickly about that I worked with about a year ago who was in her early 50s. She was doing it all right. She had very regular workouts. She had a very clean diet. In fact, at that point in time, like she was eating, I'm like, dang, you eat better than I do. Like I do the kind of 90-10 rule, like 90% of the time I eat whole foods. And 10% of the time, if I'm out and about, I don't get too stressed out about it. And she was like 95, close to 100% whole foods. She was a great cook. She was making all these things herself at home and had a great routine. And she just kept telling me, I'm not recovering as quickly. Like I'm going to the gym and I feel achy for a few days afterwards. And so we dug deep, did the usual functional labs that I talk about all the time. We look for inflammatory markers, the HSCRP, we look at the hormones, and she had a few things off. Her highly sensitive CRP was going up, her progesterone was low, and her sleep was, we go deep on sleep. Like if you haven't ever measured, with one of these devices, like it's super instructive and helpful, and it's so powerful. Like you gotta attack that lever that's so strong, which is sleep. And so we made some modifications. We targeted her hormone that was low, specifically the progesterone, which actually, as we replaced that, her sleep got much better and she recovered better. She got, we targeted the inflammation that was going on that we could see in the HSCRP, as well as her fasting insulin was a little elevated. We tackled that with the basics that I shared about in the podcast just 2 weeks ago on biohacking and the things I'm sharing about here. And within a few months, like she's like, wow, I'm pushing more weight. I'm recovering quicker. I feel better. And so, a couple more quick things you can do. I'm going to anchor this in, and we're going to end strong. Is that you gotta have what sometimes I just simply call a bedtime routine, right? Like if you ever had kids, they benefit from a routine. And we forget sometimes as adults, right, that we could benefit from a routine as well. So anchor this in. Have your bedtime be approximately the same time all week long, even on the weekends for the most part. This is so helpful to anchor in a consistent routine. You go to bed at the same time, you wake up the same time. Your body loves rhythm. It loves to have a schedule. Like honestly, we think our kids only benefit from having a routine. Adults benefit just as much, if not more. And so anchor that in, be consistent, same time, no matter what day of the week it is. And number two, have a ritual, a wind down ritual, I like to call it, because we do it with our kids, right? We have a bath, we maybe read them a book, maybe we sing songs, have a prayer, whatever it is. Like does that work? We're not doing any screens. I mean, I don't do any screens with my kids. Do you with your kids? I doubt it. Like when they're young, especially, you have that whole routine. Usually it takes about an hour. And I still do it. I have a couple of young kids that are still in elementary school, and we do this routine, and it's amazing. We as adults need to create a routine for ourselves, a wind down routine in the last 30 to 60 minutes of our day, whether it be getting in a warm bath. Maybe you have a sauna, you can get into that. Maybe you can just sit and read a book. Maybe it's meditate. Maybe it's just hang out with your best friend, your partner, your kids, and just kind of chill together and relate, talk about the day, talk about your gratitude, talk about what you're excited about, like whatever. Have some time away from the screens, right? And next thing, I know I talked a lot about sleep. I love sleep. It's one of the most powerful levers that often gets left out. The other thing is a lot of us are high achievers and we're training, we're lifting, we're doing all the things. Well, you don't want to train at max intensity every single day, right? Sometimes we think more is better. More is not always better, right? You want to mix in days. That's why I only say lift, do the resistance or the pumping iron part, 3, maybe 4 days a week max, because you don't want to do it 7 days a week. Your muscles actually need time to recover. And if you're doing a certain part of the body, say you're doing arms, chest, back, like you need to rest a couple of days in between. You wait. I try to do kind of more of a total body and then I take a day off, maybe two, do it again. I do a solid 3 days a week. And you don't work out the same muscles every day, right? It just doesn't work. You feel achy, your muscles can't grow because they don't get that recovery interval. So don't train at max intensity every single day. You got to mix it up. More is not better here. You got to have lower intensity days. For me, that's just walking. I love, love, love walking. The other thing we can do, kind of the last powerful lever right here that we'll talk about, we've talked a lot about inflammation. Well, how can we decrease inflammation? It's avoiding the big three, right? I've talked about that already. The highly processed grains and flours, the highly processed sugars, the highly processed seed oils. Avoid the big three, but you got to mix in the omega-3 fatty acids, right? These are like fish, sardines, any kind of roe. Oh, man, I got to eat some of this amazing stuff in Japan. It was unbelievable. Whatever it is for you that you can get in your diet that increases the omega-3, the healthy oils. You can even do it with nuts. Nuts have healthy oils in them. Also, you got to focus on hydration. Make sure you are hydrating. I start my day with 16 ounces water every single day. And lately, I'd say probably the last 4 or 5 months, I've actually added in the morning, first thing, not just the water, but electrolytes in that water. And I feel energized throughout the day. This is key to lower inflammation. Stay well hydrated, eat whole foods, avoid the big three, and add in healthy oils, healthy fats, especially those that have the omega-3. In the US right now, we are all completely lopsided. Our omega-6, which is the unhealthy oils, basically found in everything that comes in a bag, box, or a barcode, like Dr. Bickman says, that has all the crap oils, right? The so-called seed oils. These are omega-6 oils, which are inflammatory. We need to reverse that and have more omega-3s, the healthier fats, whether it be from fish or roe or nuts and seeds or avocado, coconut, whatever, these kinds of things, extra virgin olive oil. This is what we need to shoot for with respect to the healthy fats and oils. So here's the thing, we're going to bring this home strong. These are the tools that can really get you to where you want to be. You got to know what your body needs and know the signals, right? The low energy we talked about, the stubborn belly fat, the poor recovery. These aren't just random things that happen. They're kind of the early check engine lights, right? Like my initial client I shared about, like he had his labs done by his primary doc. They were normal. And he felt terrible. He's like, I can only do 60% of what my energy level is just not there. And the science is clear. We talked about the things that we got to measure. We got to look under the hood. We got to do the tests that often aren't done. And then we got to make a plan to go deep, like we talked about here and also in the recent episode on biohacking is not probably the answer in most cases. We need to go down to the root. We need to go to the foundation. The foundational things will change the trajectory. They will change the trajectory. So I hope this was helpful for you. This is one of my favorite things to do to share with you the things that I've gleaned from not only my own personal life, but working with many clients over the years and also from the literature, the powerful levers that can change not only how you feel, but legit, they can change your biology, change down to the cellular level because you're actually making a difference at the mitochondrial level, right? The little powerhouses that make the energy in your cells. You can change that and you can assess it. Like you can check under the hood with the optimized panel of these functional labs I always like to talk about, and then you can make a plan. And so get with your local functional or integrative medicine doc, wherever you are, or if you need help finding one, reach out to me. We can try to get you one because at the end of the day, really age is just a number. And this is something that I've been learning the last decade. And it's more about how you feel and what is occurring at the cellular level in your body, your biology. So the cool thing is that is something you can change. You can't change your calendar age, your chronological age. Like I was born in 74. Many of you were born in that neighborhood as well, and you can't change that. That's just something we got to live with. But you can change your biology. You can change how you feel. And so when you start listening to the signals your body's giving you, maybe it's the low energy, maybe it's the midsection thing, maybe you're just not recovering quickly, and you act upon them, now that is where the magic happens. It's literally where the rubber hits the road, and there's so much you can do. So hopefully, I know I talked fast, there was a lot in there, but hey, we kept it tight, 40 minutes, a lot of powerful stuff. So you may have to re-listen, but I just love to share this with you because it's what really moves the needle at the end of the day. So I hope you found value here. And if you want to reach out to me, have questions, feel free to. I'm at Dr. Thomas Hemingway. That's Dr. Thomas Hemingway on Instagram, Facebook, Thomas Hemingway MD, my website, thomashemingway.com. You can reach out to me, send me a message. Make sure if you haven't already done so, drop a review over here on Apple like this kind soul recently. And I will give you, if you're one of the next 10 that does so, I'll give you a free copy of my book. I'll mail it to you. I'll even heck, like I'll get it out to you, within I can get expedited shipping so you can have that and you can I just want to give that to you as my simple thanks for being a part of this. So reach out, drop me a review on Apple. I'll send you a free book for the next 10 that do it. And remember, there's so much you can do. You are not a victim of your genetics or what have you. Like an age is just a number, that's all it is. Your biology you can change. That's the truth. That's what I found. That's what the data shows. And I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful. Together, we can do so much. And thank you for being a part of it all. Make sure you share this out, drop me a review, and let me know how you're doing. Until next time, aloha.